Here's one for you. Trafalgar Square's fourth plinth. It hosts a striking new artwork. That's what it's being described as. The artwork is by Mexican artist Teresa Margolles.
Yes, the installation, there it is. It features 726 plaster masks of transgender and gender variant people from across the globe, each intended to weather and deteriorate over the next 2 years.
Yeah, for 2 years?
2 years, that monstrosity.
It's odd. The art piece aims to give visibility to the community and commemorate murdered trans singer Carla Le Borada, blending art with activism.
Right. OK. I'm not sure what this has to do with London or our capital city, but we know that we like to have very diverse plinths in our capital city.
Well, we don't necessarily like to have them. We have them.
We know that our mayor likes to have them. And apparently this artist likes to use blood and grease from autopsies in her artwork. I don't believe she's used that in this one. But yes, because she was a forensic pathologist in a past life. So she likes to incorporate the blood of deceased people in her artwork.
What's wrong with the statue?
And now she's moved on to transgender masks.
What's wrong? The other three plinths of Trafalgar Square have Brits from history, military leaders mostly, commemorated there. We've also got the big statue in the middle of Trafalgar Square, obviously Nelson. You've got a monarch in front of him on a horse. Good stuff.
Yeah, you do.
Why can't we just have a normal statue there on the fourth plinth?
Of me.
It's been suggested time and time again that this is the place for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
May I just say, this artist, at the beginning of her career, she was given a stillborn fetus by a mother, which she encased in cement. And she was also known for smuggling blood and grease from these autopsies to use in her sculptures.
Is that legal?
It doesn't sound very legal. Perhaps in Mexico it is, I don't know. Anyway, shall we speak to Rafe Haildelman-Koo from the New Culture Forum, who I imagine will have something to say about this. Rafe, I think I may have spoken to you a little while ago about Sadiq Khan's plans for statues in our public realm. Well, this is an interesting one.
It is. Look, this is ugly, it's crude, it's unimaginative, and it's so predictable in its virtue signalling. And, you can't say that beauty's in the eye of the beholder, because the British public were polled on this when it first was unveiled, the images of it, and only 1/4 of the public had any like for it. So you have to ask, given that no one wants it, why is the mayor and his ilk foisting this on us? And that's because they're trying to create a new cultural orthodoxy for Londoners. They're trying to transform this ancient city with all of its traditions into something new. He's not just a net zero mayor, he's a year zero mayor attacking all of our culture. And the fourth plinth could have been used to celebrate British history and London. We've got so many great British artists. It's interesting that of the 6 people shortlisted, 5 were ethnic minorities and the only white person was a woman, despite the fact, of course, that Britain is still overwhelmingly white British. And that shows you that the idea here is to hijack and transform this platform to promote Sadiq Khan's, his divisive agenda of identity politics, virtue signalling, and anti-British propaganda. And I'm sorry, but public spaces are for everyone to share. And unfortunately now, if you go on the tube, you're bombarded with this messaging with anti-British poems. If you're on the overground, the lines have been renamed. The public spaces now, there's no escape.
We don't have long, so I'll just put what the mayor might say. The mayor might say that actually London has always been about the old with the new. It doesn't mean getting rid of what's already there, but I mean the majesty of London is that it's not frozen in time like Rome, that it doesn't have sort of a height limit. It's got gleaming skyscrapers next to sort of ancient London Roman walls. We can do both in London. What do you say to that?
Well, with what you said, I completely agree. But what we're talking about here is beauty. And art is supposed to nourish the soul. It's supposed to inspire us, particularly when we have no choice about the public art we see. People who want to fester in negativity and see this artist's artwork can pay to an exhibition. But for the rest of us, this is a daily assault on our eyes wherever we go around. And I'm afraid also...
I'm horrified by this artist and what she's been doing in previous works. I mean, using the blood of dead bodies and her fascination with morgues across Mexico. Worth reading up on. Rafe, we'll have to leave it there because sadly we're out of time. But Rafe Hadelman-Koo, speak to you again soon from the New Culture Forum.
Just put a statue of the Queen there. It's not difficult.
Although
just get a nice statue of the Queen. Make it out of stone.
Although her works reflect drug-related crime, which I guess is, well, it is London, eh?
Also, can't we get a British artist? I mean,
that'd be nice. Now, allegations of rape have been placed at the door of former Harrods owner Al Fayed.
Well, in a documentary, more than 20 women, formerly employed by the Egyptian billionaire, are accusing him of assault and physical violence. In response, the current owners of the luxury department store say they are utterly appalled by the revelations and say that Harrods is a very different organisation today.
Well, joining us now is journalist and broadcaster Ade Purvis. Thank you very much indeed for joining us to talk about this. What do we know about these new allegations that are in this BBC documentary? There have been allegations in the past about this man.
That's right, there has been. So the very latest is obviously the police are taking these allegations very seriously. And as you know from previous claims regarding other high-profile members that we've seen over the last couple of years, one person tends to come forward and this has an influence on other people and, does help them to feel a bit braver about coming forward. Obviously, these allegations have been taken very, very seriously. The Harrods department store is actually has been very, very quick and is constantly putting out comms around this story. And a lot of people in the industry, I worked at a showbiz reporter in the early 2000s, some people did hear certain rumours at the time, and yet some people are very surprised by these latest accusations.
Mohammed Al Fayed shot into the public consciousness, perhaps not so much to do with him and his own personal dealings, but his son and his son's relationship with Princess Diana.
That's right, and that was the capacity in which I myself actually experienced Mr. Al Fayed back in the early 2000s. We know that he was extremely close to his son Dodi, who very sadly passed away after a car crash with Princess Diana. And it was in that capacity and the sort of relationship that Mr. Al Fayed had with the British media in particular that interested me when I was working in showbiz circles. And it was actually a mutual friend who worked in the corporate world with Mr. Al Fayed, who arranged for me to have my first meeting with him. And it was really obvious to me from the very first moment that I got to know Mr. Al Fayed, how close he was to his son Dodi. And of course, his whole family have been entrenched in controversy. The whole years that Mr. Al Fayed lived in the UK, wherever he went, it was like the most brilliant media front stories you could imagine. There was always some controversy following him.
What was he like as a man? I mean, reading some of these allegations, very shocking that so many women have now come forward. Just some of the descriptions of the way he used to sort of patrol the department store looking for young women who he found attractive who worked there and tried to take them off, secretly to isolate them and then attack them. Also, that his personal assistant was subjected to an intimate medical check. And the suggestion is that was so that they could check her for STIs in case they got intimate. I mean, were you aware of any of this? Did he come across as a particularly sleazy man?
So I can tell you there were rumours certainly before my first meeting with Mr. Al Fayed at the time, that he perhaps liked ladies. He was a bit of a ladies' man. He was quite flirtatious. I made sure that in my first meeting with him, it was at the offices of Harrods. There was a glass partition with armed bodyguards behind throughout my first cup of tea with Mohammed Al Fayed. It was extremely nerve-wracking and very intimidating. However, you have to remember that I was used to working in these circles, perhaps not quite as high profile as Mohammed Al Fayed, but I was used to holding people in power to account and obviously meeting, the rich and famous, and whether that was businessmen or social elites or Hollywood actors, that was part of my job. However, it was unnerving, it was intimidating, and I made sure that people knew where I was, how long I'd be. I was on the phone to my sister as soon as I left. I found him extremely polite. He was extremely charming to me. I opened up about a lot of things. I wanted to know how he felt about the royal family, the British media, and also I wanted to try and get him on board to make a TV documentary behind the scenes about Harrods, which at the time would have been explosive television. And obviously we didn't know the recent claims at that time. That was very obviously not going to be the case. He made that known to me as soon as, within seconds, basically. We did draw up, have a bit of a friendship. I confided in him. I laughed about the prices of buying property in London. He offered to lend me £20,000 to help me get my foot on the ladder and buy a flat in London. And this was an offer that I very politely but firmly declined. And there was a definite shift in the mood after that particular refusal on my part. And then, from then we had various other meetings. I was trying to write some academic papers about his relationship with the British media and the royal family, but eventually he phased me out.
Really fascinating how he offered you this loan, and when you didn't take it, that's when the relationship started to break down. It almost suggests this is someone who sort of used his wealth to sort of have leverage on people, get closer to people, completely understand why you chose to reject that offer.
Absolutely. And also, I think because I worked in those circles, I did know how extremely well connected Mohammed Al Fayed was at the time. But again, he was nothing but charming and polite to me, but there was definitely an edge of intimidation. And, chatting to somebody over a cup of tea, knowing that there are armed bodyguards just meters away, analysing everything you're doing, your body behaviour, your physical language, everything. And every time I met him, I did ask and insist that those meetings over tea would be at Harrods or in a public space, even in one of the restaurants at Harrods, the cafes. And I'm not entirely sure that was perhaps what he perhaps wanted. I think there were several occasions where it was suggested we'd meet somewhere else, but I was always very adamant it had to be in an open place and a public place, even if it was, with armed bodyguards meters away.
So you didn't get the impression that he wanted to, that he may have been looking to isolate you and potentially attack you in the way these women are explaining?
I didn't get that impression that he wanted to attack me. And I think one of the other things that you have to remember at this time is I was working for a tabloid newspaper. So I think from that point of view and from his point of view, I myself was quite well connected at the time. And I think any sort of underhand dalliances with a reporter, a news reporter, there's an element of risk there that perhaps wasn't there or as obvious to him when it came to other people whom he had certain other powers over.
Yeah, people like young women working on the sales floor who don't have, any contacts. Elsbeth, thank you very much indeed for sharing your experience